its no-dome missiles. Basically, China's nuclear experts told U.S. nuclear experts that a year ago in a meeting in Beijing. Richard Engel reported it on NBC News, the NBC National Security Correspondent, I think on April the 2nd or 3rd, 2013. And a month later, Chris Nelson, whom many of you read in the Nelson Report, reported that North Korea's development of nuclear warheads for the no-dongs was common talk within the Obama national security structure of the federal government, but that the talk was being kept private. And in fact, after 3 years now, the Obama administration deliberately refuses to acknowledge that North Korea has crossed this bridge, that it has developed nuclear warheads for the no-dome missiles. It seems to me the administration probably has 5 or 6 reasons of its own why it chooses not to admit this, not to acknowledge this. I can understand the reasons up to a point, but I think in terms of the effectiveness of keeping this silent, I think the effectiveness, frankly, has turned quite negative in terms of the impact of not disclosing this at the present time. Finally, on China. Now, much of what Mr. HVC said about China, I agree with. However, I would offer this caveat. Opinion within China about North Korea is not monolithic. You look back at the WikiLeaks documents, and those documents disclose that within the Chinese Foreign Ministry, for example, there was considerable anti-North Korean sentiment expressed among officials in the Foreign Ministry. We know about the growing criticism of North Korea coming out of the Chinese internet. Even the Global Times, a very nationalistic newspaper, made a reference to this in a recent commentary about the latest North Korean nuclear and missile test. Is there, and this is my question, is there a way for the United States and its allies to, well, work on this?
Yeah, I hear your
lack
question.
of a monolith in terms of Chinese opinion to try to build up and broaden the space of these critics of North Korea within the Chinese government and within what you might call informed Chinese opinion about the situation.
I think when Mrs. Pak said, let's have negotiations getting America to deploy a THAAD ballistic missile defense system in South Korea, that was an extraordinary right and proper thing to do. I've been advocating that for years and years and years. And all the folks on the other side who say, oh, don't do that, you're going to upset the Chinese. I think you should upset the Chinese. My former boss, General Dunn, who was the top negotiator with military advisor to the U.S. negotiators with North Korea, former head of the National Defense University, former head of the Air Force Association, told me that once he said, if North Korea doesn't like it, keep doing more of it. And I think it's to get their attention, and hopefully the people in China who are on our side, who think North Korea is the pain, will get the upper hand. Because the whole point of this book, this is written by a former Deputy National Security Advisor, okay, to the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, Tom Reed, former Secretary of the Air Force, and Danny Stillman, top technical intelligence officer where? Los Alamos National Nuclear Lab. This is a book similar to the one called Armageddon, Nuclear Armageddon. This came out a couple years ago. It details the Chinese activities in pushing proliferation of nuclear weapons technology with North Korea. When we showed them photographs of North Korean airplanes sitting in North Chinese airports on their way to Iran, the Chinese said, we didn't see the markings on the plane.
All right, thank you. Tom, do you have something to add? Okay. I think Peter HVC did really
Try the microphone, Tom.
You did a thorough and good job academic approach, although I do not quote so many newspaper reports. I write academic papers, I don't really quote, but your quotations of sources, identification with actual individuals who was involved, whether in the intelligence community or the administration, that's fine. But I think you did a really good job. There are two things. One, to realize how serious the threat that we should feel from the North Korean nuclear and missile programs, and number two, your recommendations how to cope with it. Now, I think you should be decorated with a medal by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un because you really emphasized how capable they are, and they're trying to really boast about their hydrogen bomb, their nuclear capabilities and so forth, and White House trying to talk it down, and intelligence community is not really equally the same. But I think with all the things you said and all the things that we know, I don't read scientific journals myself, and I'm not a nuclear or missile scientist, but having listened to you and everything I've read, I think we can safely conclude, and including the report from the General James Clapper just a few days ago at the Senate, saying that North Korea is about ready, they may ready, if not, they have not started yet, fielding KN-08, which is the movable ballistic missile type of weapons. Of course, he didn't say nuclear weapon, but I think at this point we could assume very safely that North Korea may have attained the technology of miniaturization as well as although we haven't heard whether they can really have technology for re-entry system yet. That's why we talk about so much about satellite, what satellite can do, and EMP. I am yet to be convinced that North Korea has developed, has the capability of using EMP technology as a weapons system to paralyze all the electric grids and so forth. I even wrote one article about 2 years ago, I think, back in Korea, in my column, and how formidable that would be. And Ted Cruz even mentioned that threat. One of the Republican presidential primary debates, and he said, when he was asked, all of them were asked what they going to do. This is right after when North Korea has tested and also launched the latest missile. We see a missile. North Korea still insisted that it's only satellite. So according to Peter's description, even it is a missile, and what it can do, if it can really combine the technology of EMP and missile together, that it can paralyze the system. But I think we're going to hear about the cyber attack too. I think another source of paralyzing all database and electric industrial facilities that can also happen from cyber attack, I would think. Now, having said that, let me just come to your conclusions. You made 8 recommendations, including deployment of the THAAD to Korea, and also increase of deterrence, military capabilities of Japan, South Korea, and all the other countries in East Asia. Now, and all these are deterrents. My concern is that deterrence never has reined in or stopped the North Koreans from developing nuclear and missile technology. And that's one concern I have. I even wrote in my columns often that deterrence alone does not prevent North Korean it was successful to deter war in Korea so far, all the past experience that we did. But it did not stop North Korea from developing nuclear weapons. That's my problem with that. Sanctions so far have not, sanctions alone have not succeeded in preventing North Korea from developing nuclear or missile devices. Now, one thing I want to say is that why Obama administration is not giving so much importance of this threat. They make just a general statement, it is a threat, but they don't say how serious it is, like our presenter discussed. Even when they had, Obama delivered a State of the Union message at the Congress, right in this building not too long ago, and he never mentioned North Korea even once. And next day he was asked why you didn't mention North Korea at all. And the White House NSC answer was, we don't want to give any attention or recognition of what Kim Jong-un wants to hear. Now, Mr. HVC gave a lot of recognition to North Korean leader, how capable he is, and what a great job he did developing all these incredible threats to the United States. So they should, that's one impression I got, and what the purpose of it. I know why you did that, but I stop here.
Thank you, Tom. Larry, do you have something to say?
No, I guess I was just.
Okay, save your question. All right.
Jim?
Yeah,
Let
go
me
ahead.
just
Yeah, Peter.
quickly. Of course, deterrence isn't enough, but without deterrence, as you said, we could see an invasion of the South, or even things like that. EMP technology is developing a nuclear weapon and exploding with gamma rays. It's not tough. The EMP Commission was staffed with the most reputable scientists in America on this subject, and they went through this in detail. And I urge you all to go look at it, because there's 2 commission reports. They're on the congressional website. Our sanctions have been, to quote the quote the Secretary of State, unbelievably small pinpricks. We don't even sanction North Korea the way we do Burma. We've taken them off the state sponsor of terror list. The key is, Ash Carter said, who are our 4 adversaries? Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. Who all work together on this? This is not just North Korea's technology. This is Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia, all of whom, according to the EMP Commission, work closely together. And insofar as quoting the media, I'm quoting the media, quoting our intelligence experts who have testified before Congress, the head of Central Intelligence, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of State, the NORTHCOM commander, all the people who under our Constitution are told you must protect America in these areas. And what do they say? They say these threats are real. It's not me. It's the top people who have taken an oath to defend this country, to provide for the common defense. That's what they say. And I think we should take what they say seriously, as my colleague here has pointed out. I think we have to take it seriously. And if you want to know what an EMP attack would do from Atlanta to Boston, it would shut down the grid. And you're talking about tens and tens of millions of Americans perishing within 30 and 60 days, because the grid doesn't come back. It's not a question of, okay, your cars won't run, your water pumps won't run, your natural gas pipelines won't run, okay? Your grid won't run, the FAA won't run, and then if you want to keep America from defending a very important something overseas, what would be the one thing you could do to take us out of the business of defending our allies, whether the Middle East or Far East Asia or whatever? This would be not only an attack you could do surreptitiously, and the last thing is, it doesn't matter that the warhead in question couldn't come through the atmosphere. Remember when we had our capsules coming back with our astronauts, worried about the heat shield? There is no heat shield issue, because when you explode a weapon 70 kilometers above the Earth's surface, it doesn't come back down. And the key is, when it explodes up there, there's no debris. So nuclear forensics, which we're working on really well, God bless our folks at the Homeland Security Department, they're trying to build a library of nuclear materials. So if something blows up, they say, we know, at least we know who it wasn't. On the other hand, an EMP leaves no debris. There's no fire, there's no blast, there's no nuclear radiation, there's no nuclear material stuck in cement and glass that you could analyze. That's why it's the most pernicious kind of threat, because if you did it from a submarine, which the North Koreans can't do, but if you can do it from a freighter, which they can, then the question is, you will not know who it is you should retaliate against, and therefore deterrence doesn't come into play. And it's a modest problem you can solve for $6 billion. and get your money back in a year. I tell you, I have talked to the utility executives about this. They admit, yes, you're right, Mr. Husey, but then they go off and talk about all the crazies who want to shut them down because of Kyoto and carbon credits, and I say, I'm not there, that's not me, okay? I was Special Assistant to the Secretary of the Interior for International Energy Issues. I'm not a Kyoto person, I'm not a global warming person, I want to protect America. This is simple to do. And America, you wonder why there's anger in America politically? Because we can't even take care of our VA people. We can't protect the grid. And people are wondering, what are we paying $4 trillion to the US government for every year? This is something that's simple. And the Israelis done it, England is doing it, and we should be doing it. Because it's easy, it's doable.
Okay, Larry?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, one more.
One question. Your comment about expanding sanctions. It seems to me that whatever expansion of sanctions you're talking about, they're not going to be effective unless they are aimed at China and bring about changes in Chinese policies. You've got 2 or 3 big arguments against confronting China with expanded sanctions in this country. One comes from the State Department. Well, we have all of these other issues we've got to work things out with China about. And we can't jeopardize dealing with China on all of these other issues by putting all of our marbles on putting pressure, very heavy pressure on China with regard to North Korea. Secondly, we have U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Boeing,